Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I am the food enthusiast here at J Moore Living, and welcome to the show. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. I'd like to remind people if you've missed any of the shows live, they are up on our Facebook page, Jmore Living and jmoreliving.com. They are archived. So take us for your walks, take us for your runs, and take us for your drives. We have had some great guests on, and today is no different. Today's guest is half of the dynamic duo, as I like to call them, of Cooking with Bruce and Mark, prolific cookbook authors, 36 cookbooks. Well, 35. November will make 36 will be out on the market. Podcasters, YouTube channel, and cooking instructors. Of the duo, I have the chef, which is Bruce Weinstein. And good afternoon, Bruce. And what's on your plate today? Hopefully not throwing an air conditioner out the window.
Hey, Dara. Yeah, you're commenting on my day yesterday when I was taking the window unit out of my studio and I let go and slipped and it crashed onto the deck. Luckily, the dogs were in the house at the time and not out on the deck. Today, I'm testing recipes. I've been in the kitchen this morning writing our second air fryer book, which is out next year. So I did Hawaiian meatballs right before I joined you for this talk.
Well, I just want to tell people before I forget, you had a little tip. You and Mark, cooking with Bruce and Mark.com, everybody. It's really simple. You want to find them cooking with Bruce and Mark. You have a YouTube channel and you had you have little quick tidbits in there. And the air fryer, you talked about the basket and, not overcrowding it. So I want to direct people after the show, don't leave now. But after the show, check out the YouTube channel. And you and Mark are like right on top of all the culinary equipment. How many, let's see, this new book that's coming out is on Instapot, but is this your fourth Instapot cookbook?
The book coming out November 9th is the fourth Instant Pot book. It's the uh, the Instant Pot Bible, Copycat Recipes. That's the galley. That'll be out November 9th. Yeah, we had the Instant Pot Bible, The Next Generation, from freezer to Instant Pot, which I think we're going to rename Bible in there as well. And now the fourth one, the Instant Pot Bible, Copycat Recipes.
Well, you were telling me before we went on air that the Instapot cookbooks have far exceeded. Your first cookbook was the first in a cooking series, the Ultimate Ice Cream Cookbook. And that was your number one seller. But how well and how loved and how Instapots have grown and what they're doing, that this is over a shorter period of time exceeded what you've done with the ice cream book.
Well, it has. The ice cream book was published in 1999, so a long time ago. It's 22 years ago. Still sells. We still get royalties on the book, which is very nice. It had over a couple 100,000 copies sold in these last 20 some odd years. The Instant Pot Bible has sold more copies than that in the 3 years that it's been out. It's really a testament also to the Instant Pot community and how enamored this community is of this machine and how they are always looking for things to use, recipes that work, that are trusted. I mean, you know as well as I do, there's a lot online, but getting a recipe from a trusted food writer, cookbook author, someone who's done this for so long is always the best way to go.
I want to tell people I met you when I was food styling for that ice cream cookbook down at the Baltimore Book Festival. You were a regular with Mark, and what great fun. You always had a great turnout. And we were talking earlier, you were so loved that WBAL radio had you on for many years, calling in and doing a cooking segment.
It was fun. They had us do a 5 minute cooking segment that we'd call in from everywhere. If we were at home, we called in from here. We never took a week off, so we called in from Lima, Peru. We called in from Belgium. We called in from Paris. Wherever we were, we called in to talk during drive time radio.
Well, because I sold the house, moved after all these years, I had the Cuisinart ice cream maker and four of the bowls that Carrie Bachman sent me. Was it HarperCollins at the time, or was it the other
Yeah.
name?
No,
She sent,
it was William Morrow. It was always William Morrow. Yeah.
okay. Well, maybe she had been with HarperCollins, but
Yeah.
so I just moved them out. I'm in an apartment and the freezer is yay big. So there's no ice cream making for me, but just to tell everybody, the Ultimate Cookbook series, and I'm not going to be kidding all of them. It was peanut butter, which you did a segment on The View, and
We
people
did.
have
We
to
made
find that.
peanut butter with Barbara Walters. You can go and check out that clip on our website.
Funny, funny, so funny. So it's the Ultimate Brownies, the Ultimate Cookie Cookbook, the Ultimate Chocolate Cookie Cookbook, the Ultimate Frozen Desserts, and the muffin book. I always made those lemonade muffins. I thought they were
Mm,
delicious.
they were good.
Yes, I could use one right now. Um, we talked about the fourth Instant Pot Cookbook, the copycat recipes. What can we expect to see, or how did you and Mark go about doing this, adjusting, famous recipes to the
Mm.
Instapot?
It's a great question because there are a lot of big restaurant recipes that people may want to do at home, but Instant Pot is a warm, moist environment. So if you're looking for your favorite crunchy fried dish, you're not necessarily going to get that. So what we did these are all our Instant Pot versions of recipes from P.F. Chang's and Applebee's and on the border, and not everything can give you the same texture. So, like for instance, if we did the orange chicken from P.F. Chang's, they deep fry it first, and then they make a sauce. So we were not able to give that crunchy fried nuggets, but we recreated the flavor and all the ingredients and the herbs and the spices and the texture of the sauce. And so, in the end, a lot of the recipes we have in the copycat book are healthier versions than what you can actually get when you go out to the restaurants.
Um, Listening to your recent episodes and older episodes of your podcast, everybody, Cooking with Bruce and Mark, not hard to find. It sort of has gone to a magazine format,
Yeah.
about 30 minutes, which we try to do here. I think attention span after 30 maybe goes drifting a little bit. Um, Recent episode, you were talking about food waste, and
Mm.
in discussing that, what some of us do and understanding how products are marked, expired, um, used by. Can you shed some more light on that?
Yeah, we talked about food waste, and partly that came up because we read an article that talked about how we're going to be at 10 billion people on this planet in a couple of decades, and we have to feed them all. And it's not going to be that hard to do if we could conquer food waste, because about 30 to 40% of what is grown and produced gets thrown out. And a big reason it gets thrown out is because people don't understand the labeling on packages. Now, if the package says expires on, then you should throw it out. If it says used by, you should throw it out. If it says best by, that's something else. That doesn't mean it's going to go bad or that it'll make you sick if you eat it. It just means that it may lose some quality, it may lose some of its perfection, but it's still edible, it's still good. And just that part of understanding labels can help us with throwing so much food out that we don't need to.
Absolutely. And your most recent podcast, I was listening, you were talking about food photography. And
Mm,
anybody that has an Instagram account and goes out to a restaurant and taking pictures, there's some really great tips in there. And you had a guest on who's a photographer who does a lot of cocktails. So, how
yeah.
you photograph glasses and drinks versus food on the plate. Can you give a tip or two? We'll send them to go hear the whole thing, but
Yeah, we interviewed Eric Metzger. He's a Brooklyn-based photographer who has shot the last 13 of our cookbooks. And I wanted to talk to him about the difference between shooting food and shooting drinks, because most of what he does is shoots for bar and for alcohol companies. And when he shoots for us, he only uses artificial light. And his reasoning for that, and I find it interesting because so many photographers who've worked in the past will only use natural light. And his feeling is with artificial light, you can control it enough that you always get the same look. We don't have to worry about, is it cloudier now? Is it sunnier in the afternoon? If it
right,
gets too sunny later, we have to wrap the windows and stuff and try and diffuse the light to make it match. So using artificial light lets you create the look you're exactly going for. When you're shooting food, as Eric says, the light wraps around the food, and it the food glows on the outside, as it were. Drinks, usually it's translucent, it's glass, it's liquids. The light penetrates, you bounce light through the back, and it's lit from the inside. It actually glows. So rather than having the light wrap around it, the light goes through it. And there's a huge difference of how he lights it, where he places the lights for those. If you listen to the episode, we give a lot of tips, as you said, if you have an Instagram account of how to frame food, things to look out for, like really simple. Like if you're picking up a French fry and you're taking a shot of it, are your fingernails clean? It's something you might not even think of, but it's a
right.
little something. Wipe the edge of your plate, make sure your hands are clean, and make sure that the food looks beautiful before you shoot it, because a lot of food, there's a difference between being delicious and looking delicious. French fries look delicious and they are delicious. Oatmeal is delicious, but it doesn't look delicious. So think about what you're shooting and not just based on taste, but what's it going to look like?
I agree with that. I have friends, well, the kids, the Instagrammers, the influencers here in town call me the OG. You know, they have these stadium lights. I mean, I've been known to stand on a chair and take pictures, but I can't even grasp. I mean, I have this. I have a little ring light that's as big as I get, and I have that lighting up my questions here. Um, Reels or Snapchat, we see these 30-second recipes. Can you recollect one that was the biggest abomination that you've seen?
Anytime someone is going to substitute donuts for bread and you're going to make a sandwich of donuts, it's an abomination. I don't want a hamburger sandwich between two donuts. I don't want a grilled cheese made between two donuts. So if I see that you're making something, some beautiful handheld food, and you're starting with donuts, I'm probably not going to watch the rest of it.
Okay. Um, your books, you know, people who buy it are all different levels of cooking skills.
Yeah.
And um, in writing recipes, I think you've learned over time how specific you have to be in your details on what you're putting out there. When I say that, I remember somebody told me, he says, I was reading the recipe and it said to separate the eggs, and I had two in the living room and three in the dining room. Um,
We had
Anything,
somebody once, yeah, well, somebody once wrote us and said, I greased the baking pan to put the batter in, but then I couldn't hold it because it was too greasy. So we realized, no, so you have to say grease the inside. And I think it was Barbara Kafka who once told us the story that she had to start putting in every recipe, drain the pasta in a colander set in the sink. because she got a lot of complaints from people that when they drained the pasta in the colander, the water went all over the floor. So you have to be very specific. A lot of people
Right.
just take you, especially people who don't cook. They don't, if I have never cooked before, or if I've never made spaghetti before, and there are people who've never made spaghetti, the idea that yes, I'm going to drain it, the idea that that water is going to go somewhere, it's not something they've done. So yeah, they learn fast, but you have to tell them right up front. And it doesn't cost us anything to put those extra words set in the sink in a recipe.
Right. I remember it harkens me back to God, I was probably 8 or 9, and my mother, who was a fabulous cook, she wasn't there, and they had this pasta sauce. It was powdered, and you put it in tomatoes, and then they gave you pasta with it. But nobody said
Okay.
when the water comes to a boil that you're supposed to turn it down. I just remember my father, my sister, and I, and just all this water boiling over. So
Yep.
everybody, so if you folks, if you're going to write a cookbook or put up a recipe, think of every little step. I want to talk about your book. Let's see, I want to get the right words here. Lobsters scream when you boil them.
And
A hundred
100 other myths about food and cooking. Yeah.
and 25 recipes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was listening to you and Mark. I don't know how old it was, but you were talking about cutting onions
Mm.
and crying and how to do it and not cry. And everything ended with Mark saying, and you'll cut off your finger. You'll cut off your
It was
finger.
a video we shot for that, right? It was all these ways that you can stop from crying if you cut an onion underwater. Well, the fumes can't come up, but then your knife slips off and you cut off a finger. You could put on goggles so the fumes don't get your eyes, but then they fog up and you slip and cut off a finger. So basically, the only true way to not cry when you cut an onion is to get someone else to cut it for you.
I have an answer to that.
Okay.
Um, wear contact lenses.
Okay.
Okay, I can do it. Contact lenses, and it reminds me, I don't know what the movie was, but there was some explosion somewhere, and the woman had contact lenses, and the only reason she survived is it didn't come in through her eyes, whatever. But if they have contact lenses, they can do that, and hopefully their
Okay.
eyeballs won't fog up. But I thought I'd add that little tidbit. Uh,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I don't usually come across things. One of the things you addressed, one of the questions is what happens when you swallow gum?
It doesn't stay in your system for 50 years. I know we all heard that when we were kids. Don't swallow your gum. It's going to stay in your colon for 100 years. And there are a lot of people who actually claim the same thing happens with meat. Almost anything you swallow, unless it's too big and gets stuck and requires medical intervention, will come out. It'll get
Okay,
digested or it'll come out. Don't worry about
everybody,
swallowing gum.
you can find out some of these on the podcast, Cooking with Bruce and Mark, or the YouTube channel, the little snippets, and go watch that. What, if you could go back and give advice to 20-year-old Bruce, what advice would you give Bruce?
Wow, 20-year-old Bruce.
I
Um,
don't know, 18.
don't skip, don't, yeah, 18, don't skip so many classes in college. That was definitely would have been a much better. Definitely don't skip so many classes and don't wait to the last minute to do your research and write your papers. What was that about? That's crazy. Go to class, write your papers, and also maybe uh, go right into food because I didn't go in to make food my profession until my late 30s. I was in advertising and I was passionate about food. I went to chef school right after high school. But then I didn't want to work in a restaurant. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know the other options. I didn't even really know about being a food writer. Didn't know that was an option. And then in my mid 30s, I kind of realized that and discovered that and jumped into it. And I was very lucky in the right place at the right times, as well as having some skills. And I could have started what I'm doing now 20 years earlier, but okay.
Well,
But
you're
still,
bringing another
don't
type
click
of an
off.
experience to it. How did you and Mark meet? How did this collaboration start?
Mark and I met online 25 years ago in an AOL chat room. And it was like the beginning of the whole online dating thing, very, very beginning. And we met and we talked, and then we met the next day, went to the Guggenheim to a Rauschenberg exhibit, and been together 25 years.
You just celebrated the 25th anniversary.
We did last week. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry Mark can't be here. I want to talk about, let's talk about Mark's book. He has something different. He has an autobiography that came out. So before we forget it, it's called Bookmarked. Go ahead and tell people about it.
So bookmarked, and I won't use the expletive in it, but how the great works of Western literature messed up my life, and that messed is a different word in the subtitle. Um, Mark teaches lit, and when I met him, he was a university professor teaching American lit. He still teaches literature classes. He's in the middle of an 8-week George Eliot Middlemarch seminar. He does book groups at all the libraries up where we live in the Berkshires. And his relationship with books has been intense, to say the least. And he's an adopted child, and it was not a great match when he was younger, the family that he adopted into, although we all get along very well now, and there's a lot of love in the family. And Mark looked for a timeline that he fit in on as an adopted kid in stories and books. And it never worked. He never found it. So it was his search for who am I and where do I fit in and what is the timeline I really belong in? And he was looking for that in stories and in books and in literature. And eventually that led him to teaching more, well, quitting academia and then coming back to it and finding his peace being a food writer up in rural Connecticut.
Well, I have to tell people you have to check out the videos, you have to check out the podcast because not only is there great wealth of knowledge, a great sense of humor in all of this, and how you present things is how you learn, and it is Mark and Bruce present in such a beautiful way. The podcast, let me say the Facebook page, all this information is there, whatever we've talked about today. There are links, there are online cooking classes that they're doing. There is so much. But before I forget, what do you see as the next food trend? Are charcuterie boards passe already? What do you think?
Charcuterie boards are never going to be passe because they are my favorite thing to eat, always, everywhere. Um, I think that, well, I mean, if we look 10, 15 years in the future, we're going to find more plant-based meats for sure. And I think we're going to be having to find ways to do lab-grown meat protein because we can't, as we said earlier, 10 billion people on this planet, we can't sustain that kind of livestock farming. The planet can't handle it. And I think there's going to be a need because not everyone's going to give up meat protein. And so there's going to be a need to finding out how to grow it. And let's face it, there's always going to be people who want the real thing. And the super rich among us will always be able to have real cows and real meat. I mean, I'm sure you saw that article in the review in the Times of the restaurant in New York, the Gotham, the Gramercy. No, is it what that
I
vegan
know the
restaurant?
one. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I know the one, and
11
he
Madison
he
Park.
went
It's
on
11
he
Mad.
went on
Yeah,
vegan.
11 Madison Park, and he went vegan, and you're paying $225 a head for a prefix vegan dinner, And meanwhile, turns out there's a private back room that costs you a little more where you can get beef tenderloin. So people are not giving it up, and only that at some point, only the very rich are going to be able to afford it. So I think there's going to be a lot more plant-based meat, protein, and also lab-grown meat protein. But that's in sort of closer in trends. I think the air fryer is not done yet. I think it is still continuing to grow. It is, as everyone's saying, the new Instant Pot. We're working on a new air fryer book now, which is actually the Instant Brands that makes Instant Pots. They also do air fryers. And so this book we're doing is the Instant Air Fryer Bible. And so it's working with all of the models of air fryers that Instant Brands make. Very, very wonderful appliances.
Well, my friend keeps saying I should get it, but I only have so much counter space and I don't fry that much. So if somebody gives me one, I'll use it. But I'm at unloading stuff as
Yeah,
opposed to adding it. I find my toaster oven and my microwave are the only gadgets that I really need on the counter other than the mixer. Um, oh, yeah, I'm looking at the bigger screen, which I told you I can see behind you. Those are the yarns you knit. Is that the yarns that you knit with?
that's that is some yarn hanging on the wall behind me. What I'm looking at in front of me is a giant wall of yarn. I have written two knitting books, Knits Men Want and Boyfriend Sweaters, 19 designs for him that you'll want to wear. I sell my designs on my website, bruceweinstein.net, so you can find a lot of my hand knit designs there. And yeah, that was something I picked up in my 40s and just ran with it. And Mark and I were at our publishers at Stewart Tabori Chang one day talking about our book Ham, An Obsession with the Hindquarter. And I was wearing a sweater I made, and so Mark was wearing a sweater I made. And our editor asked if I wanted to speak to their craft editor, and I did. And we had an hour meeting, and we came out of that with not only working on our handbook, but I was working on Knits Men Want.
I was going to ask you, how many sweaters have you knit for Mark, and does he
Oh,
wear
he's
them?
good. He does wear them. He's got, at least 20. Some of them are
Mm.
a little outdated at this point, or they were a little weird. I'd like to experiment, but the classic ones, the ones that are more, traditional, he wears all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so coming down to the wire, there are a couple questions that I always ask at the end of the show.
Okay.
What was your most epic culinary fail?
Fail. That was back in the ice cream book testing. And I was desperate to get a roasted garlic ice cream. And I just couldn't do anything that didn't taste like frozen Alfredo sauce.
Okay. Um, Let me address this for you and Mark. Do you do you hoard or does he hoard or what do you collect? What are your collections?
Oh, well, Mark, it's books. I mean, he's got the book collection beyond belief. And luckily we have a fabulous carpenter in town we had Mark built an office for him last year. And we did these beautiful built-in shelves, and they're already too full. So we either have to build more, or I think we'd have to build more. I collect food. We have three freezers in the house. And I swear if we had a fourth, I would fill it. It's like, yeah, no problem. It's just like, yeah, we have a local farm I get all my meat from. And it doesn't matter that there's still half a cow in one. It's like, she'll call me and say, oh, I just got another steer back. I'm like, I'll take all the oxtails, all the hanger steaks. So, yeah, I fill the freezers with food. That's my thing.
Well, along with my baking skills, I'm very frustrated with this freezer. I had to take the ice maker out. So, and I was always hesitant when I had the house to get a additional freezer because I knew I'd fill it up and things would just go in there and die. So,
You
Uh,
have to be real good about digging through. I try and keep lists that I tape to the front of what's in each freezer and scratch it off when I get them out. Because yes, otherwise I'll go digging. It's like, oh, well, that brisket's about 4 years old, and I don't think I'm going to be eating that.
and my final question, what question didn't I ask you that I should have?
You were great. You were a great interviewer. I think you didn't ask about the dogs. We have two collies, Spritz and Nosh, and they are fabulous dogs. And no, I do not cook for them. Um, and one thing I promised I would never do is cook for the dogs. And other than that, you asked a lot of great questions, Dara.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm a great food stylist. I'm a great interviewer. It comes with, I probably, I'm getting better. In a couple more years, who knows, I could take Barbara Walters' place.
And I'll make peanut butter with you.
Okay, that sounds great. Everyone, before I forget, if you didn't get the message before, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Cooking with Bruce and Mark, podcasts, got to find it, got to listen to it, uh, sign up for it, and if you like it, highlight it so it takes them up for greater notification. Bruce, thank you so much. My regards to Mark. I miss seeing him, but you are the taller one of the two, so I like tall men.
Thank you, Dara. Thanks for
All
having me
right.
on. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Moi.
Bye.
Okay. Everyone, next week we're going to have Loveton Farm Distillery on, which is a local distillery. And it's a young couple who decided it wasn't what they were doing before to start the distillery. So that is here in Baltimore. And also on the 14th, I'm very excited to have Chef Norman Van Aken as a guest. He is in the James Beard Who's Who. If you want to talk about Florida cuisine, his friends were Charlie Trotter. His friend is Emerald Lagasse. It's that generation. He's very, very talented, a great speaker, a great chef. So mark your calendars for the 14th. And then next week is Loveton Farm Distillery. You can reach me at food@jmoreliving.com. My social is Dara Cooks, at Dara Cooks. The show will be up on jmoreliving.com and also on the jmoreliving.com Facebook page. And it'll be archived along with all the other interviews. So dig through, take them for your walks, take them for your runs, take them for your drives. And we always appreciate you coming in and seeing the show and sharing it with your friends. So until next week, may your plates always, always remain full. Thank you.